5 killed in coal mine gas explosion in South Africa. In Central African Republic, government and armed groups sign a peace deal. And Tanzanian judiciary launches mobile court system. Hello and welcome to Africa Live, only on CGTN. I'm Karen Roberts, live in Nairobi. Ucha Okoronkwa joins me now with all your business headlines.
Thank you, Karen. And here's a look at what's coming up on Africa Live Biz. Employees at South Africa's power utility strike in protest over potential job cuts. And Kenya seeks to tap into unique tourist attractions in the north of the country. Of course, all that coming up within the program. For now, it's back to you, Karen.
Thank you very much, Ucha. We begin our program in South Africa, where at least 6 people have been killed by a gas explosion in a disused coal mine in the eastern province of Mpumalanga state. Broadcaster SABC has reported that several others remain trapped underground. Rescue efforts have been hampered by the dangerously high levels of toxic gas underground. Well, according to the police, several people had entered the mine on Wednesday afternoon to steal copper wires that supply electricity for lighting and ventilation when a gas pipe exploded. Copper is often stolen from disused mines in South Africa and sold for scrap. In Johannesburg, we are now joined by CGTN's Angelo Coppola for more on that story. Reports indicate that there's been a gas explosion in the disused coal mine in South Africa with a number of deaths. What more can you tell us?
Well, Karen, the mine is situated in the Blinkpan area, which is in Nelspruit, as you said, in Mpumalanga. The latest news is a confirmed death toll of 6. We're waiting for more updates on that as it stands right now, but we also understand that there are around 22 people still trapped in the shaft, and that's according to community leaders who've been told by family members that their loved ones are underground still. So there could be an increase in the death toll. That's a very strong possibility at the moment. The situation does remain volatile because there's no ventilation. In terms of context, though, the estimated number of mines, disused mine shafts in South Africa is in the thousands, and that's an issue. Many of those mines have been exposed, or those shafts have been exposed, so local communities then go underground to steal and scavenge infrastructure, which they then sell on. So the issue really is we're looking at 6 confirmed deaths and at least 22 people still missing and unaccounted for, Karen.
Well, so you say there are at least 22 people that are missing and unaccountable. What is the latest on the rescue mission? How are people trying to help those still trapped underground?
Well, those proto teams, those are the rescue teams from the mine rescue services, aren't going anywhere near that shaft until power has been restored there. We know that the transformers have had all the cabling taken away and stolen. We know that the electricity cables in the area have also been taken away. So the infrastructure teams are trying to reconnect the power so that they can get the generators working, to extract any stale air that's underground, to minimize that risk of another explosion. Those proto teams are very cautious about going in there because the toxicity, one, and also the opportunity or the risk of more explosions. So they're waiting until those fans actually kick in and extract any of that air that might still be hiding in pockets in that shaft, Karen.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We'll have to leave it there. That's CGTN's Angelo Coppola there on the gas explosion in the disused mine in South Africa. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to make the State of the Nation address from the country's parliament in Cape Town. He's largely expected to talk about initiatives in fighting state corruption and crime. Well, also on the agenda are plans to revive state-owned entities that have been pillaged by government officials and business people. The President is also expected to talk about law enforcement agencies and how they need to be rebuilt after nearly a decade of being undermined. Well, the South African President is still delivering his second State of the Nation address in Cape Town. The purpose of the address is to highlight the achievements and challenges experienced over the past year and presents the executive's programme for the year ahead. Let's now listen in.
Chairperson of the National House of Traditional Leaders, Nkosi Sipho Mahlangu, Western Cape Khoisan leader Prince Jacobus Titus, Khosi John Molefe Pilani, Chief Aaron Martin Messelar, who is with us, the 2018 CAF Women's National Team Coach of the Year, Desiree Ellis.
Okay, well, we were listening there to South African President Cyril Ramaphosa giving his State of the Nation address. We'll try and return to him a little bit later in the programme. Moving on to other news now in Zimbabwe. Church leaders there say that they are stepping forward to mediate between the government and its opponents over the political and economic crisis in the country. On Wednesday, Zimbabwe's main opposition snubbed talks with President Emmerson Mnangagwa. The Zimbabwean leader invited 23 opposition leaders to a meeting to draw up terms for a national dialogue. But on Thursday, church leaders then tried to broker talks between the warring parties. Opposition leader Nelson Chamisa, politicians from smaller parties, diplomats, business leaders and several cabinet ministers attended the gathering. But Mnangagwa didn't show up. Instead, he was represented by his defence minister. Well, the Zimbabwean leader is under pressure over the deteriorating economy and a security crackdown on anti-government protests that took place last month. Well, for more on this, we are now joined live by CGTN's Farai Mwakatuya in Harare for us. Farai, so church leaders are seeking to broker talks between the government and its opponents. What's the latest you have there?
Well, indeed, Karen, the Zimbabwe Council of Churches convened a leadership breakfast meeting today that brought together leaders from across the political divide, civic society, as well as business. And I think, as you quite rightly said, the church saying that it has a crucial role to play in brokering, a negotiation or a settlement here in Zimbabwe, realizing that the country is polarized, is divided, that the country is also hurting in terms of the economy, and the solutions to some of those economic and political challenges lie in dialogue, in parties and political leaders speaking to each other. But there hasn't been anyone who's actually, taken the lead in getting them to sit down together and speak to each other. And that is the role that the church is seeking to play here. The ZCC is a very well-respected organization, very elderly and very senior men, clergymen who make up that organization. And I think they are respected across the political divide. Both the ruling party and the opposition respect these religious leaders. And I think the fact that they are joining this groundswell and this growing talk for dialogue, it will give momentum to this initiative. And following on from what we saw yesterday, hopefully now people will be able to see these parties move from talking about dialogue, but actually getting into the dialogue, concrete steps towards coming up with some sort of resolution or settlement that will get this country back on track.
So, concrete steps to try and get some sort of a resolution. But the president is said to have skipped the meeting. Do you think his absence is likely to hinder any political reconciliation?
Well, indeed, I think, it had been widely reported that the president would attend that meeting. In fact, until the very last minute, everything looked like he would be there. The security detail that was there, the whole setup was set up indeed for the president to be there. Unfortunately, at the last minute, he didn't turn up. And I think obviously that will put a damper on people's expectations. Many people thought that the fact that Nelson Chamisa, who didn't attend yesterday's meeting, was there today, and the president was also going to be there, that it would be that historic moment where these two people will be in the same room, come face to face, and hopefully trigger the talks that many people want them to engage in. However, I think the ruling party was very well represented. The defense minister, Oba Muchinguri, is also the national chairperson of the ruling party. She's effectively the fourth in charge of the ruling party, and I think her attendance there is also a very strong signal in terms of the commitment of the ruling party to this process. But I think again, Nelson Chamisa, when he spoke, he said he's also ready to dialogue. What he was looking for and what he's been setting as a condition, for lack of a better term, is an independent mediator. He is opposed to President Mnangagwa calling the meeting and calling the meeting at State House or at his offices. He wants a neutral venue and a neutral mediator. And I think in many ways the church, because it is respected, because it is seen as neutral, will fulfill that demand that he is looking for. And also the fact that, you know, there are so many people who are now talking about this. There is a groundswell, growing impetus for for the political parties to talk and to negotiate. Many people believe that dialogue is the only solution to Zimbabwe's economic and social challenges. And I think that, you know, although the president wasn't there, the fact that it's already happening, that these processes are happening that weren't happening before, is a step in the right direction.
Okay, thank you for that, Farai. That was CGTN's Farai Mwakatuya there in Harare for us. And on to other news now. The government of the Central African Republic has signed a peace deal with 14 armed groups active in the country. The agreement was struck after weeks of talks in the Sudanese capital, Khartoum. The dialogue was held under the auspices of the African Union. The government and rebels have expressed optimism over the deal. Similar agreements signed in 2014, 2015 and 2017 all broke down. During the talks, the rebels demanded amnesty and to participate in a new inclusive government and joint patrols. Well, the full details of the deal are yet to be disclosed. The Central African Republic has been grappling with conflict since 2013.
This agreement has to be fair, balanced and lasting. This agreement has to be a reflection of a shared will, one that will offer current and future generations reasons to have aspirations and believe in their country.
As you can see, we have just signed, which means we will respect it, and all the parties will respect it. We have committed to it.
It has been a year or two that the people have been waiting for these talks. Now that it's been done, we can all be satisfied. What we hope now is that this will be implemented so that this long-awaited peace can now be achieved through this agreement. The signatures become reality.
Well, we can now return to South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa, who is now giving a State of the Nation address.
We will devote our every action, our every effort, our every utterance to the realization of their vision, a vision of a democratic, just and equitable society. In our magnificent diversity, and despite our many differences, the people of this country answered to the call of Tumamina. In their multitudes, South Africans asked not what can be done for them, but what they could do for their country. In ways both large and small, both public and private, South Africans of all walks of life set about building a better nation. Many reached out to other South Africans to lend a hand, as Hugh Masekela said, where others were going through difficulties. Others expressed a willingness to support government in its effort to turn our country around. Today, as we reflect on the year that has passed, we can attest to meaningful progress that has been made over the past year. Our people have embraced the renewal our country is going through and are much more hopeful about a better tomorrow. Our people's hope is not baseless. It is grounded on the progress that is being made, progress that they can see is underway on an ongoing basis. Over the last year, we have begun to rebuild a durable social compact for fundamental social and economic transformation with a number of key stakeholders in our country, as we promised. As social partners, we are restoring the bonds of trust, dialogue, and cooperation. We are reaching out to those parts of our society that have become disaffected, that have also become disinterested or marginalized through various forms of dialogue and engagement. Our efforts may have been uneven, and we still have much work to do, but we have demonstrated over the last year our shared determination to work together to confront our common challenges. We have focused our efforts much more on reigniting growth of our economy and creating jobs. We have worked together as government, labor, business, civil society, and various communities to remove the constraints to inclusive growth and to pursue far greater levels of investment.
Okay, well, we've been just listening to a little bit of South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, who's just been delivering his second State of the Nation address. He talked about meaningful progress over the past year and being hopeful about a better tomorrow. Well, that's it for now. We are going to a short break and still coming up. Tanzanian judiciary launches a mobile court system. And young professionals in Algeria seek jobs in Europe to escape low salaries.
Don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. You've got to get out, go there, and find them. In the bazaars in Casablanca, among the crowds in Cairo,
welcome to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
Along the waters of the Nile, along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
AfricaLive. Find your voice.
Let's now head to Tanzania, where the judiciary has launched a mobile court system. The launch event in Dar es Salaam was attended by senior officials of the judiciary. President John Magufuli, who launched the project, said this is aimed at ensuring a faster and a more efficient delivery of justice to the public. The president also called on the judiciary to ensure that cases are heard and rulings made on time.
These mobile courts aim to bring judicial services closer to citizens, especially in places where there are no courtrooms to listen to cases and give judgments. This new concept of mobile courts basically moves the court and all its services into a truck, while maintaining all essentials that make a valid court, like a judge's chamber, etc.
My call to all of you is that please do your best, despite having challenges. There is no line of work that does not have challenges.
Let's go to Algeria now, where a growing number of Algerians are seeking work in Europe to escape low salaries at home. The exodus of doctors, engineers and highly skilled workers is creating a problem for a government hoping to engage with its predominantly young electorate. This ahead of presidential elections on April the 18th. CGTN's Tuli Shabalala has more.
In 2 months' time, Algerians will be heading to the polls to cast their ballots for a new leader. But no matter who wins the presidential election, general practitioner Kali Amine hopes to seek his fortunes elsewhere. He is one of a growing number of young, educated Algerians who are looking for work in Europe or the Gulf to escape low-paying jobs and to have better opportunities for their future.
I would like to leave to gain the experience because there are tools abroad. We would like it if everything was available to us in our home country. We want to gain the experience abroad and then come back here to work for our country, as we prefer to live here. What pushed me to leave is the lack of tools compared to what they have abroad. The second motivation is the respect. Unfortunately here, people do not respect doctors. A doctor, a paramedic or even a teacher is not respected here. The salaries are also very low.
Nearly 15,000 Algerian doctors work in France now, and 4,000 submitted applications to leave their home country last year. The exodus of doctors, engineers and other highly skilled workers is a challenge for the government ahead of the presidential polls.
I want to work in hospitals abroad because they are better than ours. There's so many reasons. The tools are better. I can get better experience and then I can return afterwards. If we had the same benefits in Algeria, I wouldn't go. But I want to learn more and come back afterwards.
In the past, authorities would ensure public support by increasing salaries or extending the welfare state. But 95% of government income depends on oil and gas revenues, which halved in the years from 2014 to 2017, forcing officials to impose a public hiring freeze.
The only solution that we see as students is to earn our license, work a little bit to earn money or take a loan, and then finish our studies abroad. I want to study anywhere abroad, in any country in Europe, because educational standards are higher, and you can actually work with a diploma in whatever profession you want.
81-year-old President Abdulaziz Bouteflika has not said if he will seek a fifth term. The ruling FLN party, labor unions and business leaders are reportedly urging him to run. For young professionals, they need a leader connected to their issues and who will work towards changing them. Thuli Shabalala, CGTN.
A non-profit organisation near to Pretoria is doing its bit to help deal with the education crisis in South Africa. Learners often lack skills to start work, while only a small percentage of others pursue higher education. But a community transformation project just outside Pretoria is trying to educate a new generation of young people to prepare them for the job market and even to become entrepreneurs. CGTN's Julie Sher has more.
The Vasfontein Community Transformation Project started in 1998 with a vacant plot and a dream to transform the lives of poor communities in Shoshonguve and Hammanskraal through education. 20 years later, that dream has become a reality.
When we started the high school last year, in the primary school premises, we had a lot of children that came here that had been out of school for a year or two, and to reintegrate them into a school is quite challenging after being in the adult world for so long.
South Africa has a high school dropout rate. Close to 40% of children enter the schooling system but don't finish matric. This program is trying to reverse the trend.
Our vision is not just to have a 100% matric pass rate in the end. We do practical skills with the children and practical subjects like agricultural and ICT and business studies, so they can either start a business or get into the work market with a qualification.
The vision is taking form, and now learners from this area have an opportunity to realize their potential and finish high school, which opens up doors for them later on in life.
The opportunities that you get if you are educated. You can be anything that you want to be. You can go into any industry that you wish to be in. You teach them how to be less consumers but more producers in the economy that is currently developing by creating their own job opportunities and creating job opportunities for others.
Parents pay a small portion of the fees. The rest is sponsored by individuals, giving children from more than 500 families access to quality education.
My journey in Vasfontein was really wonderful. I think what I've learned at the school is going to help me like to build my career, like to start my own business and stuff like that.
I've learned like especially in maths, like we are focusing on a textbook that's from America, and things in there, like, they're very difficult, but with the teachers that are here, they helping us, like, they teach us like every step and they make it a lot easier.
Phase 1 of the high school has just been launched. Vasfontein is hoping to secure $2.3 million by the end of this school year. Judiciary, CGTN, Hammarskraal, South Africa.
A special paint that wards off mosquitoes has been launched in Uganda in the fight against malaria. Health authorities are confident the new method of prevention will reduce the rate of the disease. Malaria remains a major public health problem in the country. Leonis Nyange reports now from Kampala.
The latest solution in the mix in the fight against malaria. This acrylic emulsion has what manufacturers call the knockdown effect.
If a mosquito lands on the wall itself, they absorb the active ingredient through their legs and they become disabled. Over a period of time, they will be immobilized and eventually knocked down.
The paint is designed to be applied in residential properties as well as public and commercial buildings. This plant has the capacity to produce over 200,000 liters of anti-mosquito paint, and that is enough to paint around 150 households. It costs around $20 a can. Health facilities and children's centers are expected to be the first beneficiaries.
The reality of life is that you need to take as many precautions as possible. Anti-mosquito paint is just one vector. Uganda and government recommends the use of mosquito nets, obviously, residual spraying wherever possible. So I think it's just overall how to do the best job to restrict incidents of malaria.
Health authorities hope the new intervention will help them succeed in the drive to make the country malaria-free.
Most of the people who are admitted, do not sleep under the mosquito nets. So we'll ensure that our hospitals are actually painted with this mosquito repellent paint so that we can be able to even avoid the challenge of theft of the mosquito nets, and even sometimes you find the mosquito nets dirty. According to Uganda's health ministry, malaria prevalence has dropped from 42% in 2009 to the current level of 19%. It says mosquito net use and indoor spraying have helped turn the figures around. Now it hopes this new weapon can help brush malaria aside for good. Leon Senyange, CGTN, Namamve, Central Uganda.
Ethiopian authorities are celebrating an international ruling in their favour to retrieve property rights for its traditional grain teff. A patent held by a Dutch company has now been declared null and void. CGTN's Gurum Chala has more.
For years, Ethiopia's staple grain teff patent rights were held by a Dutch company which was unwilling to let go of the right. A court in Europe has granted it. Now a court in The Hague is said to have ruled against the teff patent holder. This is a news which is welcomed here in Ethiopia with a lot of joy. Ethiopian officials said the long-standing dispute with the Dutch company, Health and Performance Food International HPFI, bore a result. Finally, the court ruled the patent right of the company was null and void. Teff is widely known as Ethiopia's heritage. The famous Ethiopian food injera is made out of teff itself. For Ethiopians and Eritreans, both at home and in the diaspora, teff's injera is widely a favorite food exclusively associated with the two states and mentioned as a sign of national identity. Gurumtara CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. AfricaLive. Find your voice.
recap of our top stories now. In South Africa, at least 6 people have been killed by a gas explosion in a disused coal mine in the eastern province of Mpumalanga. State broadcaster SABC has reported that several others remain trapped underground. Rescue efforts have been hampered by the dangerously high levels of toxic gas underground. According to the police, several people entered the mine on Wednesday afternoon to steal copper wires that supply electricity for lighting and ventilation when a gas pipe exploded. Copper is often stolen from disused mines in South Africa and sold for scrap. The government of the Central African Republic has signed a peace deal with 14 armed groups active in the country. The agreement was struck after weeks of talks in the Sudanese capital, Khartoum. The dialogue took place under the auspices of the African Union. The government and rebels have expressed optimism over the deal. Similar agreements signed in 2014, 2015 and 2017 all broke down. During the talks, the rebels demanded amnesty and to participate in a new, inclusive government and joint patrols. In Tanzania, the judiciary has launched a mobile court system. The launch event in Dar es Salaam was attended by senior officials of the judiciary. President John Magufuli, who launched the project, said this is aimed at ensuring a faster and more efficient delivery of justice to the public. The president also called on the judiciary to ensure that cases are heard and rulings made on time. And a growing number of Algerians are seeking work in Europe to escape low salaries at home. The exodus of doctors, engineers and highly skilled workers is creating a problem for a government hoping to engage with its predominantly young electorate. This ahead of presidential elections on April the 18th. And those are the top stories that we're covering. Well, let's now go to Uche Okoronkwe for the latest business news. Over to you.
Thanks, Karen. And coming up on AfricaLive Biz, employees at South Africa's power utilities strike in protest over potential job cuts. And Kenya seeks to tap into unique tourist attractions in the north of the country.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Every story starts out like this.
Okay, we'll head up now.
But beyond the rush of the numbers, there's always a more fundamental question. What happened? Who has been affected? When market-moving decisions are made, who's responsible? And why?
Let's get some reaction on ground. Joining us in Johannesburg is Sumitra Naidoo. Hello, Nairobi.
This is how all stories begin. See how they end. Only on Global Business.
AfricaLive. Find your voice.
Well, let's start off in South Africa, where several dozen employees of the country's state power firm, Eskom, decided to strike against the firm's headquarters in a protest. Now, unions have said they are opposed to splitting Eskom, arguing that it's part of a plan to privatize the company and that it could lead to large-scale job losses. Now, Eskom, which supplies more than 90% of the power in Africa's most industrialized economy, is struggling with around $31 billion of debt, and it's also fighting for survival. Now, analysts are expecting that South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa will say how he plans to turn around Eskom at the State of the Nation address on Thursday. A task team appointed by Ramaphosa to advise him on ways to save Eskom have proposed splitting it into different entities for generation, transmission and distribution. And shifting focus now, the European Commission on Thursday sharply cut its Eurozone growth forecast for 2019. Now, the region's growth is now expected to be 1.3% this year. That's down from about 1.9% predicted in November. The Commission says the health of the Eurozone's largest and second largest economies is now emerging as a concern. An unexpected slowdown in Germany and protests in France are adding to existing worries such as Brexit and a populist-led Italy. The European Commission also pointed to external risks such as trade tensions and the slowdown in emerging markets. Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Theresa May has promised EU leaders that she can get the Brexit deal through Parliament if they give her legally binding changes to it. Now, May also vowed to deliver Brexit on time after a series of meetings with top EU officials in Brussels. European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker again ruled out the kind of changes which May wants to see, but the two sides agreed to further talk to break the deadlock. Now, observers are saying that May needs to persuade the EU to change the agreement and get lawmakers' approval before Britain leaves the trade alliance on March 29th. Meanwhile, Juncker said the EU stood by Ireland and that the backstop foreseen in the draft withdrawal agreement was an integral part of it.
We cannot abandon the idea that the backstop has to be put into place, because the backstop is a guarantee for Ireland and is a guarantee for the European Union, because the Irish border is a European border. And the Brexit issue is not a bilateral question between the Republic of Ireland and the United Kingdom. It's a European issue.
This isn't just a question for Ireland. It's not just a question of maintaining the peace process, protecting the Good Friday Agreement, although that is the overriding objective and has to be. It is also a question of making sure that we protect the single market and the customs union, and that Ireland doesn't become a backdoor to the single market and the customs union. So if at some point in the future the United Kingdom were to allow chlorinated chicken or beef with hormones into it, into their markets, we wouldn't want that coming into our markets or the European Union as well. But as I've said before, we're making no preparations, no plans for physical infrastructure on the border. We haven't really gone into the details of that today, but we will do whatever is necessary to avoid the emergence of a hard border on our island, deal or no deal.
Now, here in Kenya, investors are slowly moving to the north of the country in a bid to take advantage of its unique offerings. Now, Turkana, which has the world's largest desert lake, was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It has kilometers of untouched beachfront property. While CGTN's Wilkista Nyabwa reports in our continuing special series, Treasures of Turkana.
Turkana County in northern Kenya doesn't feel like your typical holiday destination. For decades, the sweltering heat and dusty roads in this remote region discouraged visitors. But today, 6 flights land at the Lodwar airstrip every day, bringing hundreds of travelers. Some come for work, others to visit friends, and an increasing number are now coming to enjoy the hidden treasures of Turkana.
The biggest attraction site is the lake, the world's largest desert lake, with the UNESCO Heritage Lake, which is protected. It has a length of almost 250 kilometers beach length.
In the middle of the lake is an island, Central Island, a national park. Inside the island, there are 3 crater lakes, and inside those crater lakes are flamingos, crocodiles, and the popular tilapia fish. And there's more. Tourists come for the blend of the old and the new. Communities here are still holding on to their culture, while modern comforts are easily available. And for the religious, the Christ the Redeemer statue in the middle of town beckons. It is this contrast that has boosted the local tourism sector.
The current grading in terms of preferred locations, Turkana is coming 3 in Kenya, after Mombasa and Mara. And this is something good for a frontier county.
But it isn't enough. Rolf Glow runs the Elias Springs Resort. Visitors at his hotel can enjoy the sandy beaches and nights in modernized huts.
Last time I was in Turkana, I flew over Lake Turkana, so I saw it from above, from the sky. And I said, oh, when I come here next time, I will try to go here. And it's a beautiful place, just beautiful and very warm.
But the hotel never fills up. There have been sporadic bandit attacks in different areas.
Turkana is safe. And of course, the geographical location of Turkana places Turkana in some risks. We border South Sudan, which is volatile. We border Ethiopia. The southern beach is also volatile. We border Uganda.
This, coupled with poor road infrastructure, has made it hard to attract local and international tourists. But things are slowly changing. The establishment of county governments and the discovery of oil has opened up the region for development. The Kenya government has also named 3 areas as resort cities. It has plans to develop the road infrastructure and build more tourist facilities. Peace-building efforts are ongoing. The changes could draw in more tourists.
The really beauty of Turkana, you face it and you feel it when you are here. When you see the star sky in the night, when you see the beautiful sunsets and sunrises, when you feel the strong wind, the strong waves in the lake, you feel really exposed to the nature.
The treasures of the desert are waiting. The tourism sector in Turkana County continues to grapple with many challenges. Investors, however, hope that Turkana's unique attractions will continue to draw in tourists and aid the growth of the sector. Wilkisanyabo, CGTN in Turkana County.
Well, let's shift focus now to South Africa's economic growth. 2 data points have been released in the last couple of days. Now, the surveys point to an economy searching for positive news as well as policy direction. Here's Angelo Kupolo reporting more on that story.
The first data point is the Saki Business Confidence Index, which moved sideways between December and January. Compared to January 2018, however, the BCI was 4.6 index points down from the exceptional level of 99.7 in January 2018.
I think it's a very realistic figure in the sense that we're more aware of the challenges and we are aware what we must do to actually try and address some of these challenges. And then, of course, corruption and maladministration also came to the fore very strongly in January. So apart from actually economic structurally adjusting the economy, it's also about getting the economy and the administration back on track.
Then there's the ABSA Purchasing Managers Index, which edged down slightly but remains above the 2018 average, suggesting the sector started the year on a fairly strong footing, despite a drop in production momentum from Q4 of 2018.
Although we're seeing weak activity levels right now, manufacturers are upbeat about near-term prospects in South Africa, and I think what they seem to be looking for is that there may be clearer policy action perhaps.
The national budget to be presented by the country's finance minister could provide some clues.
The upcoming budget must put it very straight to where we're going. I think it's not only about policy certainty, it's also the direction of which policy is taking.
Economic growth prospects will, however, remain muted.
We're only expecting GDP growth of about 1.7%, but it's pretty clear that a lot is going to rest on policy statements that emerge after the elections in around May.
The data suggests that there's still little opportunity for significant growth in the South African economy. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Well, that's all for now on Africa Live Biz. But coming up on Global Business Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa delivers his second State of the Nation address. Today we'll have analysis on all of that and his remarks after, of course, at the top of the hour. Now back to you, Karen.
Okay, thank you very much, Richard. Well, we are going to a short break now. Don't go away. Lots more to come, including an app that gives tourists a virtual tour of South Africa's cradle of humankind is developed. And celebration held at ancient monuments in Egypt.
When you look at Africa, what do you really see? Do you see fast-growing, endless deserts? parched earth? Or do you see the biggest opportunity for an agricultural revolution in a generation? Do you see crowded, unplanned cities or vast, untapped markets? Do you see population at risk, or do you see a billion-strong opportunity to build the next wave of multi-billion-dollar firms in Africa? When you look at Africa, what do you really see? Join us in Global Business and see Africa through our eyes.
AfricaLive. Find your voice.
There's some good news for all those visiting South Africa's famous Cradle of Humankind site, which is located 50 kilometres northwest of Johannesburg. South Africa's Witwatersrand University has developed an app that gives tourists a 3D view of what lies beneath the site, so visitors don't need to climb into its caves. Accessing the excavation site is not easy. Let's take a look.
Actually look around the cave like you were actually there.
South Africa's Cradle of Humankind has yielded numerous fossils that are important in the research on human evolution. This is the site where Homo naledi species was discovered. Researchers refer to the site as Naledi chambers. However, accessing the excavation sites is neither easy nor cheap. But a unique app is making the sites accessible to all, virtually. The VR app was developed by Wits University in partnership with the Perot Museum of Nature and Science of Texas.
The VR app is actually a really awesome opportunity for us. As some people may know, the Dinaledi chamber is very difficult to get into. There's only about 20 people in the world who have ever been into that space. And so for us, because Homo naledi is such an exciting discovery and the material is just so spectacular, we wanted to make sure that everybody had a chance to actually go into that space and see what it's like for themselves.
The app comes with narrations done in 6 languages. Combined with 3D images of the site, tourists travel back in time and are able to see the ongoing excavations.
If you hold still, it's just zooming down into the earth, I think, at this point.
I see the roof now. It's grey. It looks like water lines.
What this app does is in 3-dimensional space, it actually places you right over where our excavation occurred. So you can actually see the original excavation area. You can, if you search around, you can actually find some fossils and make discoveries and pick them up and look at them, if you will, in virtual space. But you can also explore the rest of the remarkable chamber. You can look about, it's a true 360-degree experience. You can look at the floor, the walls, and do exploration yourself in perhaps one of the most important ancient human relative sites on the planet.
I think it's a great experience to be included. You know, if I get to a place and people speak the language that I speak, I feel like they speak into me. They speak into my heart. So it feels great for Sesotho to be included.
This is part of the efforts by the team that is digging the site to make it more accessible to locals and visitors. More ways of enriching visitors' experience are being explored. For now, the VR app Dinaledi is taking everyone there. Laura Walubengo, CGTN.
Egyptian officials have organised a special sound and light show in front of the pyramids and Sphinx at the Giza Plateau. CGTN's Yasser Hakim has more.
Overlooking the Great Pyramids, the Sound and Light Show is a must-see event for any tourist visiting Cairo. Using 5 foreign languages, it takes you on an impressive journey through history and time. To tell you the story of the ancient Egyptians and unlock their secrets and mysteries. But this week has been a unique one for the 30-year show.
We have introduced the Chinese language for the first time in the show. It wasn't easy. It was a culmination of huge efforts to translate and record the whole show in Chinese. Our staff even had to travel to China and stayed there for 3 months to record it with the help of our Chinese national radio team.
The Chinese New Year has been seen as the best opportunity to achieve this milestone. It's a result of the growing number of Chinese tourists visiting Egypt.
We will screen the Chinese language show every day this month because of the Spring Festival. Then it will be fixed on 1 day per week permanently. We will also add the Chinese language in our other sound light shows in Edfu Temple, Philae and Karnak temples. We are going to China in April to record the new shows.
The experience has been enjoyable for the Chinese visitors.
Today, there are pyramid. Beside the pyramid, everything is nice. The show, the light, and include the Chinese culture. And I think this is a good view for Chinese. And also, we hope that Egyptian and the Chinese will have good relations. And in future, the relations will be better and better.
We like this place very much, and to celebrate the Spring Festival, seeing the pyramids makes us very happy.
And the idea has been welcomed by Chinese officials.
This is a big transformation because it will help Chinese tourists to visit the sites and learn more about Egypt's history through the sound and light show in Chinese. This will also be a catalyst in increasing the number of tourists from China, as it will be an exciting experience for them.
Celebrating China here at the Giza Plateau is an indication and reflection of the unity and cohesion between two great civilizations, the Egyptian and Chinese. Yes, Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
We've got all the sports news coming up after the break, including CAF confident Egypt will prepare sufficiently for the Africa Cup of Nations.
AfricaLive. Find your voice.
The Confederation of African Football says that its confident emergency host country, Egypt, will be ready to stage this year's Africa Cup